I'm here in Medjugorje in front of St. James Church, and I'm what's your name?
Tom Fauché.
Where are you from?
I'm from Tampa, Florida.
And how often have you been in Medjugorje?
This is my fourth time here. And
where did you hear the first time about Medjugorje in your life?
Back in 1998.
And what did you think?
From Wayne Weibel, one of his sheets, photocopy sheets. And I thought, oh, that's nice. I was born and raised Lutheran, and so Catholicism was not a big concern for me. It was just another religion as far as I was concerned. And I had no interest. And then over time, got married, grew up, and in 1992, I moved into Tampa, Florida, and 3 months later, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And, then I had to drop out of college. I was trying to finish my degree. I had to drop out of school because I could no longer concentrate. My mind, I couldn't remember. By the time I read one sentence, I forget what the previous one was. So I had to drop out of school. So I continued working. And then in 1995, I found myself in a wheelchair, actually a power chair, because I lost the strength in my hands to push a wheelchair.
And look the hands now, yeah. And
so I had to use an electric wheelchair and shortly thereafter I ended up getting a service dog to help me, because if I dropped something, I could not pick it up, so she would, and put it in my lap. Then I continued to get worse, to the point where sometimes my wife had to help me dress, or to even go to the bathroom. And so it was pretty bad. I could not. I had spasticity in my legs, which caused them to be stiff. And as a result, I could toddle somewhat with the crutches a few feet, but not any walking at all. My legs didn't bend. I'd have to try to swing them around, and it was very difficult, so I could only go 10, 15 feet at a time. Then that continued until 2004, and I decided shall we back up a little bit? In 95, before I was in the chair, I decided that if I wanted to, I had learned more about Medjugorje, was very curious, still doubting, but being German.
I know that. Yeah.
That's my background is German. But
like mine.
Yeah, well, not quite as much. A few generations removed.
But I understand you. Yeah.
And actually, my grandfather was a butcher in New York.
Okay. Wow, amazing.
But during the Depression, anyhow.
And so
So I decided to come. I said this was while I could still walk. I could still sort of walk. I wasn't restricted to the chair as much. I came and I thought that in order to participate fully in Medjugorje, the best way to do that was to become Catholic and understand what Medjugorje was. So I became Catholic, and gave me a better understanding of what Medjugorje is. Not very deep, but at least a thumbnail sketch. Then later in 95, I just realized we weren't going to make it.
Wait, I think this is the dog we
had been to Italy earlier that year, and we had discovered that handicapped accessible is not in the vocabulary to ask the towns to cut a curb so I could get my wheelchair in and out that was put down by the Romans doesn't usually work. So they would So the curve. And I continued, and I couldn't make it to Medjugorje then. I just was unable. And it wasn't until 2004, attending conferences put on by a group in Orlando, Florida, that would, it was a Marian group, very involved with Medjugorje. They were coming here during the war for humanitarian purposes, and were very involved with the visionaries. So they had these conferences going on. This year, there were no visionaries at the conference. There was a priest that had received the gift of healing here in Medjugorje. His name is Father Joe Amalfitano. And as time went past, he ended up being the, I don't know what quite the word is, the chief investigator to bringing of Padre Pio for his canonization.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
And he had one of Padre Pio's gloves. And when the conference was over, I decided we were leaving. We were the last ones out of the conference. And a woman that I did not know, did not see coming, stood in front of us and said, "Ask Father Joe if he has the relic of Padre Pio. And if he does, ask him to use it." And I thought, okay, I'll do that. Why not? And because the visionaries had, most of the visionaries had prayed over me at one time or another. So I thought, oh, we'll go for this. Why not? I kind of like Padre Pio. And
Beautiful.
he, so I went to him. He prayed over me, and I asked him about the glove. And there was one man before me who was also in a wheelchair, very similar situation, slightly older than I was, that was also MS and had just left, and I was next. And so I asked him about the glove of Padre Pio, and he said, sure. And he reaches into his habit, pulls it out, and he anointed me with oil as well. And he starts praying over me. He says, well, what do you want? And I said, being, I don't know what the German word would be, smart mouth, being sarcastic, if you will. I said, well, you know, walking would be nice. I'd like to have my body back if that's not a problem. And he said, okay, we'll see what we can do. So he prays over me. Then, when he's finished, he asked me if I felt anything, because he does not know. And I went through a mental inventory very quickly, and I tried to move, and no, nothing's changed. So, okay, well, God has his plan. Not necessarily, he doesn't work on my schedule. So I said, oh, you know, what will be, will be. And then when I went home, and he said, give me a prayer to say, and that's the Father Joe prayer. Excuse me.
Do you want to read it out?
I'll read it. Let your precious body and blood mix with mine and travel through my body, healing all my fears and all my illnesses, and fill me with your peace. Let your precious body and blood mix with mine and flow throughout my being. Make me into all you would have me be, that I might love like you. And he said, next time you take communion, say this prayer. We'll see what happens. The next day was Sunday, and unfortunately, I could not get out of bed. I couldn't get out of bed. It's MS. It wasn't until the following Saturday, a week later, that I went to Vigil Mass on Saturday, and I pulled my chair up next to the pew. My dog genuflected. I taught her how to genuflect, by the way. She's a Catholic dog. She genuflected, and then would place herself under the pew, which is generally is okay until she started snoring during the Mass. Like, usually during a homily, but she would snore. And the priest would try to find who's snoring.
Yeah.
And everybody's got their eyes wide open to make sure, oh, not me. He never did find out, by the way. He never told me. But anyhow,
Cool.
so I I read the prayer 3 or 4 times just to make sure. However, and again, God has his plan. It's not necessarily mine. So I said, okay, I'm not going to worry about it. Lived the day, did whatever, and went home. The next morning, it was Sunday, I woke up, and to get out of bed was a process where I slept on my back. I couldn't roll over. So I slept like the dead every night for 10 years. And I would roll to the side, lift one leg and slide with my hands, slide it out over the edge of the bed, and it would be straight because I couldn't bend it. And then I'd slide the other one out. Now I'm sitting in position with both legs straight out. I'd grab one leg, bend it, put it on the ground, bend it, put it on the ground. And I could grab my crutches and on the forearm type crutch, and I could get myself up, but it was always a little chancy, dicey, because I'd have to hope to balance if I went up. Anyhow, so I pushed up, and I started to go forward, and there's a wall, maybe 4 feet away, and I was trying to find the softest spot on the wall to fall into. But instead, my left leg stepped forward to stop my fall. And I paused for a moment. I said, that's very unusual. What happened here? So then I said, let me, either I got stronger last night, or I got lighter. I lost weight during the night. I went up so easily. So then I get the other leg, and I just lift it up, and it just bends like so, which it hadn't done. And my wife was just brushing her hair a few feet away from me, so I walked over to her with all fours because I didn't know how else to walk. And I showed her. I lifted one leg, and it bent, and she was ecstatic, and then I lifted the other leg, and it bent, and she started to cry. Then I said, watch what else I can do, and I took the crutches, leaned them against the wall, and took my first 3 steps, turned around, 1, 2, 3, normal steps, no limp, no pain, no weakness. And after sitting for 10 years, there's got to be some atrophy. Nope, wasn't there. And 2 days later was my my regular neurologist appointment. And so to have a little bit of, he had been seeing me from the time I walked into his office normally to a cane, crutches, chair, and then the power chair. And we chit-chat. He has a student with him, and he is now the chair of neurology at the University of South Florida. His name is Dr. Peter Dunn. And he's always been the kindest man. So we chit-chat a little bit, and he says, well, let's get down to business. How have you been? And he takes out his little BlackBerry with his stylus, and which I thought was the greatest piece of technology I've ever seen in my life. But I turn to the student and I say, watch this, you're not going to see this very often. And I lean over, I flip up one footrest, flip up the other footrest, and I stand up and walk. And he almost fell off his chair. And so I turned around, walked back, and sat down. And he said, what happened? What did you do? And I said, well, God. And he paused. And the battle between science and faith was going on between his ears. And you could see it in his expression. And faith won. He says, after being as bad as you were for so long, there is no possible way that you have this kind of recovery this quickly or at all. You should never have recovered at all. Maybe a little better, but not like this. Nothing. You can't walk. And I said, well, God thinks I can, so who am I called to tell him no? And so that was how I started walking. 2 weeks later, went to visit some friends I was walking my service dog, and she was not used to me walking. First of all, I'm a lot taller, and a lot, not as quick.
Mm-hmm.
So I started to walk, and she started to walk a little faster. So, not thinking, I started to walk a little faster, and then she started walking. Next thing I knew, I was running. I ran, I don't know, at least a city block. Turned around,
Amazing.
and I thought I had been flying. It felt odd because the motion was not something I had felt in a very, very long time. I turned around and I ran back. So within 2 weeks, I ran 200 yards because I just didn't think of running. And
It's amazing.
one time I left early after the healing. She knew how to. If I dropped a crutch,
Mm-hmm.
I was stranded. I needed two. If I dropped one, she would
The dog.
pick it up. The dog would pick it up and lift it up to me, so that I would then be mobile again, at least for that period. And I come out of the bathroom, and I'm standing in the hallway directly in line from her, with the crutches leaning against the bed. She comes out into the hallway, looks at me,
Mm-hmm.
looks back at the bed, looks back at me, as if to say, "Do you want me to get those for you?"
Mm-hmm.
And so she was somewhat confused, and I said, "No, it's okay. Come on, let's go."
Uh-huh.
And she was with me until the end,
Wow.
but
Uh-huh.
because that's all she knew. And I had to dress her up in her little uniform, take her out so that she was working. If she wasn't working, she'd get depressed,
Mm-hmm.
and so I had to.
Keep
And
her.
that also got me up and out and into the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the short version.
Unbelievable, your story, you know.
But there's many, many details. One of the greatest miracles of this
Mhm.
is my wife and I were married in 1989, September of 89. And I was diagnosed in, I think, October of 1992.
Mhm.
So we had been only married 3 years. And once I was diagnosed, we went to the neurologist, and he explained things, and then we went to there's the multiple sclerosis MS Society
Mhm.
that was assisting for knowledge and what to expect, and some of the things to expect.
Mhm.
It may, when I first was diagnosed, it may go one of two ways. One, you're relapsing remitting. In other words, you get worse and then you get better. But you get better 97%. Over time, that declines. So even if it's 97, and there's no way to tell how long that would be, or whether it would be just a plateau, a valley, or some type of crevasse.
Mhm.
And as it turns out, instead of a slow progression, within 3 years, in 95, I couldn't walk, which was very quick. And he was very disturbed because he thought that if this continues, maybe 3-4 years for my life.
Wow.
And so it's all written down. I've got MRIs when I first got my first MRIs, they used gadolinium
Uh-huh.
to highlight any exacerbations. It shows up in the brain as white areas. And my brain, which thankfully, they did an MRI because I could prove to my wife I do have a brain.
Yeah.
But it looked like the 4th of July, or the fireworks at night, all over the sky. And each of those bright points was damage. And that accumulates. That's why it was so quick. There was just so many of them.
Mhm.
And they were so large.
It's amazing.
When I was tested later, after I started walking, because I wanted to return to work. They found out with a psychological testing that I couldn't go to work because my intelligence was on the higher than average, but my ability to access that information was limited.
But look at you now.
Well, I still have, and so when I look back, I realized, and so I couldn't work because I could not remember. Somebody told me to do 3 tasks on a job. I would not remember 2 and 3. Or if I'm doing the same repetitious task, the 100th time I've done it that day, I would have to look it up because I forgot how to do it. I just could not access. It was there, but I just could not access it. It's like having a library, and somebody took the card catalog of it, and none of the books were in order. All the information is there. It's just finding it. And the same way with this. So they would not let me go back to work. And when I look back on it, I realized that I asked for too little. I only asked to be healed physically. I didn't think to be healed all. So my mind was not healed. And
So you still can ask, and you did, I guess, no?
and God, and I think maybe He's thought, you're a smart mouth, huh? I'll give you exactly what you want, because I think God is literal. And I asked for that, I got it. Like, what was it? Lot negotiating with God. He stopped at 10. I did the same thing. Instead of going all the way, so those things start to pop into your head, and I hear them. I said, look at that. And so I have been ever since. A few times there were what I would call a scare, where I thought I was getting weak, and I thought maybe it was coming back or an exacerbation of some type. And they would give me the steroid treatment. And really, I could have skipped it. It was unnecessary. Because then I realized I'm not going to do that anymore. If I feel bad, like it's coming back, no, God does not take away a gift. That's His love. He doesn't take away a gift that He's given you. And so I thank God every day. When I put my feet on the floor, I say, I can do this now. Because it used to be. Anything had to be planned. Every move had to be planned. And I would always be looking for the softest place to land if I fell down. Because that happened a lot. So I... since then, I've been here. And so then in 2005, I think it was 2005 or 2006, I came to Medjugorje the first time as a Thanksgiving, and to thank Blessed Mother too, because Father Joe received his healing here. So that's the Medjugorje connection. If this had changed, that changed, none of this would have happened. And so, the poem, Footprints in the Sand, it's truly a beautiful poem. You turn around and you see where God has carried you. The times when it was most dark, where were you, God? Well, I was carrying you at the time. And you start to realize this, and it sometimes gets overwhelming. I still...
It overwhelms me now. Me too right now. It's like... So I sometimes have problems with my memory, or the word will be here, but somewhere between here and here, it hits a block. So I was fortunate to have a large vocabulary, and I would learn to very quickly substitute other words, or sometimes it'd be a phrase if I couldn't think of something fast enough, rather than a word. And
That was my manner of speaking. It still is. I still.
But look now, no. Yes, it's amazing.
No, there are
Really, this is amazing to
times
see.
when I get stuck like that. That's the
But then just
extent of
pray, and He will give it to you. I'm
But
so
now
sure,
that
you
I'm
know.
64,
Yeah.
I can blame it on being 64.
Excellent.
Or on Friday or Saturday nights, I can blame it on the beer. And
But look the way you came from this German, stubborn, intellectual, rational man. No?
yeah,
Me too. You know, we all man.
rationality
Yeah?
is a goal that I seek.
Yeah.
It's not one to be embraced. It's
Because
still emotion, you know, where you what I want versus what's good. Question. You know.
But it's beautiful what you said. We have to ask God in detail the fullness. We often don't want to do that.
Don't
You know?
aim low.
Mhm.
Aim for the whole. I don't know what in German. What is the
The
word?
fullness.
Enchilada in Spanish.
And in English, how do you say the fullness? The fullness.
Complete.
Uh-huh.
Don't say 90%, 50%. Go. Oh, I want. If you had the opportunity and God said, "What do you want?" Somebody said, "I'd like to win the lotto," and he would say, "Okay, how many numbers do you want?" And instead of saying 5, I don't know, 5 or 7 or 6 or 7, and you only take 3 numbers. Oh yeah, you won, but it's pittance.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the difference. You know, whenever you ask to God, He cannot be outdone in generosity. So if He will be as generous beyond belief. He was as generous as I wanted, not as generous as He wanted to be. So that, I think, is a lesson that most everybody should take to heart. The fact that I was healed, yes, it's wonderful for me, wonderful for my wife. She's still here, by the way, 33 years later.
Beautiful.
So, and she had been told that in the very, very beginning when I was still walking, oh, he has MS, you should divorce him.
That's what I just wanted to ask. What a beautiful wife. And how did she react to all this? You know?
And she went through all that, you know, and she was the sole breadwinner, and she had to work a tremendous amount, you know. And now we're able to come back here. We're able to do a lot of things that we weren't able to do. And so we're just...
You got also a jackpot in your wife, I tell you. I mean, you got a jackpot or the lottery win with your wife, to have a soul with you like that on your journey. You see, I am touched. I have tears in my eyes to see that, to find somebody like this. You know,
I believe the blessing of mountain walking is like a pond, pebble in a pond. It's great for me, but the more it spreads, the more benefit and glory for God.
Amen. For sure.
That's what really it is. At the conferences that we went to, they had me as a speaker a few times, and there's been very positive. The gentleman, the reason I mentioned at the beginning, the gentleman that went before me, I knew he was known to the conference as well. He and his wife, wonderful, wonderful people.
What happened to him? Yeah.
Well, when he got home, and then when all this happened, and he found out about it, he said he thought that was my miracle. You know, I just missed it this much by this. And his wife said, no, that's his miracle. You know, it doesn't work that way. And he died maybe 8 years later. His MS, he was also with MS. His MS did what mine may have done. But so there's a Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah.
So I have to
I just feel giving this interview for one is getting probably more coverage than any of the conferences that I've done. They're more limited. This has a wider audience, and that God does listen to us. He does hear us, and even if you're smart mouth, He will still listen.
Thank you so much. I'm in awe, you know.
Thank you.
Thank you for this interview.
Okay.